Welcome to Ross Flybox. Today we're going to tie an old classic, the Quill Gordon, going back to the Catskill days. I'm going to tie it in a little bit of a different variation, just a slight variation in color to match the slate drakes. I use this pattern very effectively on slate drakes in central Pennsylvania. And let's go over how I tie it. I start off with a size 14 standard dry fly hook and 8/0 dark brown uni thread. I start my thread in the middle of the shank and I bring it to the front, to the eye, and then back, and I split the difference. Bring it back to the center of the hook, and then we bring our thread forward, split the difference about 2 eyes back, giving an even from the middle to the eye, an even distance from either side from where we started. First we're going to tie on our wing. I prep my wing in advance. Take the center out. I use standard gray mallard versus wood duck to match the slate drakes a little bit better. And I started prepping this after watching Davey McPhail tie his. This is his method for tying in Catskill wings. I've seen it used before, but I watched his and it looked a lot easier. So after probably a dozen years or so of tying these things with a bunch, I started trying this, and it works very well. And I sweep everything to the front. And I tie my wing in about the length of the entire hook, from the tip of the eye to the bend of the hook. That's the length I want for the wing. And I pinch wrap in the middle. A couple security wraps. Make sure I got the length where I want it. I'm going to trim the back end at a 45. And wrap back over and keep them in place. Now what you'll find is this method works very well for dividing your wings, because there's a natural divide that you've already placed in the feathers, in the fibers. And start working them, just fluffing them a little bit, getting them to go the way you want. And the ones that don't belong there will naturally tell you. And once you start getting them to go in their own direction, push back on them. And that splits them rather decisively. And you can start to put a couple extra wraps in there. But don't get impatient with them. You've already divided them by your prep. So you've already done the work to get them to go the way you want. Just to guide them without kinking. Looks like I got one in there that's going to be trouble down the line, so I'm going to trim that one out right away. And then I'll sweep them back, wrap back into them. A bit too much there. Build up a little bit of a dam in front of them. Put them in place. And looks like we're good. Another short one down here. We'll get that out of the way up front. And your wings are in place. Fairly simple. I like the method. I've been using it for quite a while now. And we're going to bring our thread back to the tie-in point of the tail above the barb. For my tail, I use Coq de Leon or CDL. I find it's a little bit stiffer. I use a medium Pardot. A little bit stiffer than the standard fibers that you're going to use off your hackle. And I use a sizable clump. I don't count them. Trout can't count. I don't need to. I divided that up a little light. I'll try that again. Came out a little bit uneven. There we go. Okay, and I measure my tail same way I do my wing. Tie my tail in the same length as the hook, the entire hook. And I'll lay the fibers in between the wing. Give it a couple pinch wraps. Make sure I got them the length that I want them. And wrap back. When I get to above the eye of the hook, I'll lift my tail. Give one wrap underneath. And then one wrap on top. And that splays my tail slightly, which I want, and sets it in place at just a slight angle. And then we're going to bring our thread forward to the transition point. And we'll clip off the butts from our tail. Make sure I got them all. Got one fighting with me a little bit. And wrap over them. Got one sticking up there, hidden in the light. Okay, next we're going to tie in our quill body. I prep mine singly with an eraser. I don't tie enough to prep them that many in advance. And I'll trim the tip off. And then I tie in the quill to the side of the hook. And I'll wrap back to the tie-in point of the tail. And then I'm going to bring my thread forward and try and build as easy or as level and as finely tapered body as I can without building up extra bulk. Just want to get rid of that transition. And I'll bring this up to about the same distance behind the hackle as I have in front of the hackle. And then we're going to prep our base. I use Sally Hansen's. Some people use a little dab of super glue. I don't use head varnish because it does yellow. It is varnish. And it gets a little brittle, I find. Sally Hansen stays nice and clear. Dries nice. And seems to hold up pretty good over time. And then we're, just when I think everything's going good, we break off. Don't let that fluster you. Retie in. Maintain your taper. I would unwind it. However, I already put varnish on it, so I'm going to leave it. And then you're going to wind your peacock herl forward, one in front of the other. The taper is going to be natural by the width of the herl. Or the quill of the herl. And the taper of the body that you've built up underneath. So you don't need to overlay it and make it taper. You want a nice slender body and a nice slender taper. When you get up to the top, tie it off. And now see if I can get that fiber. There you go. When I get to this point, you're going to tie in your hackle. For this pattern, I vary from the original hackle, and I use Ginger Badger. It better matches, to me, the slate drake that I'm copying. And I tie it in on the side. And when I bring my thread forward, I want to keep a consistent base, and I'll restand my wing. That's usually the last I have to dress the wing. You tie in your hackle wet fly or dry fly fashion. That's the inside of the feather, or the dull side of the feather, forward. That stands your fibers up properly. Shiny side to the rear. And what I try and do, usually it works out just fine, I give 3 full wraps behind. It's actually like 3.5, but that first one is only a partial turn. I sweep my wing back, wrap in tight behind, and I give 3 in the front. And I tie off, leaving a little bit more than what you would tie up for many other patterns. You leave a larger area for the head with the Catskill pattern. You want a prominent head. You don't want to crowd the eye with it. And build your head. And then I'm going to give about a 3-turn whip finish. And if you got any stray fibers, now's the time to clean them up. Okay, and then another drop of Sally's on the head. Not too much. No need to overdo it. And there it is. Quill Gordon, tied in slate drake colors. Many people have stopped tying the Catskill patterns, feeling they're not as effective as they were or they should be. I find exactly the opposite. I find the classic Catskill patterns on the hatches they were designed for, and on many others, if you adjust the coloration, of the materials to be very, very effective whenever the trout are looking up for the duns. The Quill Gordon. I hope it adds to your box as it continues to do for mine. Good luck. See you in the water.